Hello, everybody. I'm Richie Livingood. I'm the older brother of Ryan Livingood. He was shot to death on Memorial Day weekend in 2018 while I was deployed. I didn't find out until 3 weeks later, after he had already been buried, that he even passed away. I was lucky enough that after deployment, I was able to fly home and make it home for his birthday celebration, which we did at his gravesite. So today we're going to be talking about the events that led up to my brother's death, what has been done afterwards, and we're going to be talking about all the fallacies and everything that I have found in this report and all the steps that I have taken to try to rectify this, and all of them have been shot down. So hopefully this video goes viral and it lights an absolute storm, an absolute firestorm underneath them, and they actually do their job. Because from what I'm seeing, I'm not convinced. I'm one of those type of people that I can look at something. Yes, I miss my brother. I miss him. And if the events went down the way they said it did, if my brother was a crazy individual, as one of them describes, a crazy son of a bitch, that he was, and the fact that that my brother was pointing guns at them, threatening their lives, and they ended up shooting him before he got to shoot them, I could say that is justified. I can be heartbroken because my brother is gone, but I can be understanding. But what I can't be understanding about is whenever I'm going through this and stuff just does not add up, does not match up in the slightest bit. So let's kick this thing off. Let's talk about what the detective wrote happened whenever my brother was shot, or the events that led up to it, and then how he was shot. During the investigation, Olivia, Shay, McKenzie, and the juvenile were interviewed at different times and different locations. All of these listed individuals were present at 66 Isaiah Lane when the shooting incident occurred. All gave separate but similar accounts of what took place from their perspective. The account goes as follows. They pulled into the parking lot of 66 Isaiah Lane in Lincoln County, Kentucky. A Jeep SUV pulled into the parking lot a short time later, being operated by Ryan Scott Livingood. Olivia was located in the front passenger seat of Shay's vehicle. Olivia exited the vehicle and proceeded to the driver's side door of the Jeep. Ryan Livingood and Olivia were involved in a verbal altercation when suddenly Ryan produced a handgun. During the argument, Ryan Livingood began pointing the handgun in the direction of Olivia. McKenzie was sitting in the back passenger seat of Shay's vehicle. When the handgun was produced by Ryan Livingood, McKenzie exited the vehicle to confront the two parties. At some point, Ryan Livingood pointed the handgun in the direction of Olivia, and McKenzie then produced a handgun, firing it at Ryan Livingood. The juvenile exited the back driver's side of the vehicle and fired several rounds from his own handgun. These rounds impacted the front portion of the Jeep. The projectile struck Ryan Livingood in the chest area of his body, with Ryan Livingood collapsing to the ground. After a few moments, Shay, McKenzie, and the juvenile fled the scene in Shay's vehicle. Olivia remained on the scene to administer first aid and call for medical assistance. Now, let's talk about what the detective said happened in the video. The SUV pulls into the most northwestern portion of the parking lot and parks facing southeast. The SUV leaves its headlights on, and they're pointing directly at the camera. The visibility is obstructed by the headlight, and I am able to see a shadow walk in front of the headlights, which appears to be a person walking from their passenger car to the driver's side of the SUV. Okay, that's what he wrote over here. A very short time later, you see another shadow walk in front of the headlights. Then for a few seconds, I observed a lot of movement in front of the headlights. Based on the shadows moving back and forth, the passenger vehicle then leaves the parking lot traveling north on Isaiah Lane and disappears out of sight. The headlights of the SUV turn off, and the vehicle is still sitting there, or where it was initially parked. In the video, You still cannot see any person around the SUV. After a few minutes, I observed first responders arrive on the scene, seeing the emergency equipment in activation. The timestamp is very close to when the Lincoln County deputy arrived on scene. I was able to have the footage downloaded and is attached to this investigation. Okay, let's talk about a few things here. So, the Jeep, whenever you pull into he pulled in that parking lot, he most likely shut it off. So he shuts off the vehicle. He's standing there outside the door. You observe confrontation happening, and then she runs back to the car and they leave. The timing on the headlights of that Jeep from whenever he shuts it off until they shut off is 90 seconds. All of this transpired in less than 90 seconds. So my brother pulled in the parking lot, went all crazy. She got out of the car. She shot him. The juvenile got out of the car, started blasting away. They ran back to the car, and they left all within 90 seconds. Let's talk about what was seen at the scene, what was observed. Sorry, give me 1 second here. There were several spent casings in front of the Jeep. There were 5.38 caliber shell casings, approximately 25 feet from where the front bumper of the Jeep. Approximately 25 feet from the front bumper of the Jeep. They were offset to the southwest in the front of the bumper of the Jeep. A single 9mm spent shell casing was located directly in front of the driver's side tire of the Jeep. There were several impact damages from the projectile in the front portion of the Jeep. One was in the passenger side headlight. One was off center to the passenger side top portion of the windshield where the roof and glass meet. One was on the driver's side portion of the windshield. Okay, fair enough. I observed all that stuff in the Jeep myself. Whenever I went and looked there, I saw all three of those bullet holes. A TriStar 9mm semi-automatic handgun with serial number T6472-12AG02678 was observed in the front driver's seat of the Jeep. Okay, I observed that in the picture as well. On the driver's side door jamb, I observed what appeared to be blood. On the driver's side of the Jeep, on the blacktop, I observed discoloration in the blacktop, and it appeared to be blood along with discarded medical items used by first responders. Okay, so let's talk about that. Okay, I'm going to flip you around here real quick. So here's what he was talking about. He observed the 9mm, which is there. But you're probably asking, how did that 9mm get there? Well, Olivia stated that whenever Ryan fell back, he still had the gun in his hand. So she picked it up and put it in the seat. Right here is where you can observe the blood on the door jamb. Notice anything else missing? There's also pooled blood right here. That is not splatter. That is blood that has dripped off of his body. There's also blood right here. If you look up here a little bit closer, right here, there is actually a bullet hole in the seat. So the detectives, they took this Jeep into evidence. I went through all 200 and something pages of this, every single last bit that I have of open records. They did absolutely no forensics work on this vehicle. Nothing. If my brother was standing outside of that Jeep pointing a gun at them and he got shot through the heart and his left lung and he fell straight back, how in the hell is there blood on that door jamb? How is there blood on the seat and the molding around it. And why is that bullet hole there? Now, some of you are saying, well, it could have been from the juvenile whenever he shot into the vehicle. Well, think about this. If he is kneeled down, which we traced back where he was actually standing, because if you look at the headlights, you can see where it entered in the front clear portion and then the mirror in the back. And whenever you put an arrow through there or line it up perfectly, you can kind of see where he was standing. And he was firing his gun from a kneeled position. He was firing it up into a windshield. Now, if you know anything about geometry, if you're firing at an upward angle and you strike something that is already on an upward angle, it's not going to switch trajectory and go completely against the grain. It's going to continue flying up. So those bullets that bullet in that seat did not come from that 38. Looking at the autopsy, let's look at the bullet path that went through my brother. Sorry, give me 1 second. Gotta find it here. Located over the midline chest, it's 56 inches and 3/4 inches above the left heel, is an entrance gunshot wound. The wound measures 5/16 up to 1/4 inch. There is an eccentric abrasion collar measuring up to 1/16 inch from 7 o'clock to 1 o'clock. Soot and stippling are absent. Let's talk about this eccentric abrasion collar. Let's say you're shooting at a paper target or shooting at any target. If you're at 90 degrees and you shoot at that target, whenever that bullet enters into that target, it's going to leave a perfect circle. The further you shoot it at an angle, the more it's going to have an eccentric abrasion, meaning that the bullet is going to go into it, but also the full bullet is actually going to grind against it before it goes in. So if I got shot straight here, it would be a 90-degree perfect centric collar. Someone shoots at me like this, the bullet is actually going to grind against my skin before it goes into the wound. So that's indication that it was at a downward angle. I've already showed you there's blood in the seat. I've already showed you there's a bullet hole. Now, the autopsy is starting to confirm exactly what I'm saying. The eccentric abrasion collar, she was at an upward angle on him. After penetrating the skin, I can't say that. After penetrating the skin and tissue, the projectile proceeds through the mid-sternum at the level of the 7th rib, anterior and posterior right ventricle heart, lower lobe of the left lung, and medial posterior left 9th rib. The exit gunshot wound is located over the left back, 53 1/2 inches above the right heel, and 2.5 inches left of midline to the wound that measures 1/2 inch to 1/4 inch. So, in the report itself, the detective said that there was a slight drop in the bullet trajectory through my brother. I am unaware. Well, let me backtrack here. I have another younger brother. He is 6'1" and roughly 190 pounds. Ryan was 6'3", 160 pounds. My younger brother, his chest is about 10.5 inches thick at his sternum. So, my brother Ryan was extremely tall and pretty skinny. So I think I think we can pretty much say that he's got a pretty narrow chest at the sternum. Anywhere from, let's say, 6 to 9 inches. A 3 1/4 inch bullet drop through a 6 or 9 inch area is not a slight drop. That is a significant drop. That's anywhere from a 45 to a 60 degree drop. And nowhere in this autopsy does it indicate that there was any reflection, refraction, diffraction, anything like that. Basically, that bullet stayed on the exact same path as if my brother was not occupying that space. If my brother wasn't there and she fired that gun at the exact same place, the bullet would have ended up going through the same place and ended up in the same way. So I'm going to show you another picture here. So we have done the calculations and we have narrowed it down to where that bullet would have went through. Look at this. No, I'll do it this way. So this lines up actually perfectly. If my brother was seated in that vehicle or trying to get out or anything like that, that bullet would have traveled through him, would have had the exact perfect drop. And that bullet would have ended up in the seat. And there would be blood on the seat and on the door jamb for whenever the blood ran down his back, landed in the seat, and he fell out of the vehicle, his back sliding against that door jamb, and he fell out. So I don't know how the hell you came up with the conclusion that my brother was standing outside of the Jeep whenever he was shot. I have no clue. No clue whatsoever. It does not add up. It does not. So at this point, I have contacted the Assistant Commonwealth Attorney. I've contacted this detective sergeant requesting an internal investigation into this, and I've pointed all this out plus more. I have contacted the Post 7 commander, pointed all this out plus more. Nothing. I have gotten nothing. One last little piece of tidbit here is Mackenzie was actually high on drugs at the time that she shot and killed my brother. Nowhere in this report was it listed. This came from eyewitness testimony. Don't believe me? Listen to it for yourself.